pleased here to be talking with John Smith, who is a longtime friend. We met, I think, when you moved to Portland. You looked me up, and we had some interest. It was one of those things about what I was doing in Wiki, and you've spent, at least a decade exploring community. And what I'm excited about is the fact that you brought a draft of this book that is about, I don't know what I call it, a practical guide to community or a theoretical guide
Well, it's trying to combine practice and theory together.
Now, one thing that, we've been talking about this for an hour or two, and one thing you told me that I think is very interesting is that as a method that you've been actually, hey, there's community,
this is real life.
Community calling right now, and that you've been talking to real people. So I was going on about the idea that you actually observe people who are not consultants to communities, but who find themselves in and leading communities.
Yeah.
And tell me more about that and how it's worked for you.
Well, that's been really important because I think there are a lot of possibilities, lots of ways in which when you become a consultant, you can fool yourself into thinking that you know more than you do. Or you can convince yourself that you know less.
Yes.
And so kind of really having a critical stance to understand, well, what do you know? Part of that for us has been, we're all practitioners. Etienne, Wenger, Nancy White, and I.
Those are the authors here.
Yeah. We all work with communities in terms of helping people establish communities, helping people use technology effectively for whatever their purpose might be.
Right.
But we also happen to be involved in a community called CP Square.
Yes.
Which is a
and
community.
CP Square is how old, or how many years?
About 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
And it's about communities of practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot, some of the examples in the book come from there. But we've also purposefully tried to connect with people who are working with a community, like one guy, Robert Tolan, is working with a community that is of people who have myeloproliferative disease.
Yes.
And so they live with a challenge. And they have an email group that helps them live and helps them learn about how to deal with itching and to learn about the JAK2 genetic marker.
Yes.
And it was interesting the other day, I was preparing for a talk, and so browsing through September's archives.
Right.
And lo and behold, there's a woman whose SIG file at the bottom of her signatures says what her email address is, what her age is, and whether she's JAK2 positive or not. And it really struck me, okay, here's someone who is part of this community.
To the point that matters.
Right, yeah, and she knows what JAK2 means.
Yes.
I don't have any idea. To me, it's just a series of letters. But to her and that community, it's meaningful. And they identify that in the community as a badge,
And this idea that something having meaning is uniting in a community.
That's right.
I think is fundamental.
That's negotiated and is evolved, okay? Because when they started this community in 1992, there was no such thing as a genetic marker.
Right.
In fact, it was very hard to diagnose this disease. Now, you can do it, and the leader, even though he tries to keep the technology simple for its members, he's got a lot of Google searches running in the background that tell him when that string of characters has been used in a publication, way before the researchers at your local university hospital.
Yeah. Now, another idea that you mentioned was that community can exist and be defined and made whole that is invisible to people outside that community, that it can be hard to study because if you're not a part of the community, you may be oblivious to what's making that community work. And that's got to be tough as as a student of community to even know what's there.
So I think that's well, actually it goes both ways. There's an element of community is understandable to those who are in it.
Yes.
And there's also an element of there's a view from the outside that's important. One of the things we've done in CP Square is talk with a community leader over time. There's this dialogue that's really important. That is the experience of using a delicious tag as the crystal around which a community forms.
Right.
But the leaders of that community, in talking to us at CP Square, learned a lot about themselves.
From talking to you.
Yeah, that outsider perspective where we ask the stupid question or we kind of say, well, this is like some other community possibility or like some other platform.
Yeah.
Or, what's the difference between this community that forms around this tag and Ward's community that formed around a wiki? What are the dynamics? What are the similarities? How does knowledge get created? How does identity get supported in those different environments?
And one more thing that I think runs through this is, and I want to get the word right, but the technical, what do you call it? The person who understands the technology,
the tech steward.
The tech steward because of modern communities and the whole internet thing, there's so many opportunities, and the tech steward has a responsibility that's more than just being technical.
Right. Well, first of all, they have to get what the community is about. I mean, to the example you gave, if you don't see the community, if you're not in there as a member, you don't have the disease or you aren't connected with someone that does, you might not even know that there's a community.
Right. So you could be talking about this cool, internet chat program and just be like totally irrelevant and not understand why.
Yeah, the idea of a tech steward is that they're enough of a member to really understand what are the issues, what are the purposes, what's the history, what's the possible future trajectory of this community. Who's involved? If we choose this tool, does it leave some people out?
Yeah.
Does it open new conversations? All of those things require an insider's perspective. At the same time, if tech stewards only live within the community, then there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of new stuff that's happening out there that they don't know about.
Uh-huh.
So, a key aspect of tech stewardship is being able to scan and understand the possibilities that are out there, being able to understand the processes of technology adoption. Then there's an aspect of just staying with the community. Like, you have new people joining us, and they're very important. So kind of showing them the ropes of the technology that we have, saying, look, here's a practice that we have to take, emails that are juicy. We systematically grab them and reorganize what's been discussed and put it on a wiki page.
Yeah.
And you may not know that at first, but let me tell you, your turn will come. And so you need to kind of start picking
is
up the ropes.
stewardship something that gets passed along?
Yeah.
Does every tech steward know that they're a tech steward?
No, not really. I mean, a lot of people, that's one of the cool things about writing this book is showing people a draft and people saying, yo,
that's me. That's me. Right.
This, what a relief. I could never figure out what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, John, I want to say I really appreciate what you've been doing, and I think this is going to be a great contribution to something I care about, and it's always a pleasure.
And it has to be said that you were one of the inspirations for this book in terms of the stories you told me about making up tools as a result of conversations in your wiki were like, oh, that's it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. So thank you very much. And is this the title? It's going to be Digital Habitats, Stewarding Technology for Communities.
That's right.